It was November 2024. Desperately needing an external monitor, I considered companies like LG and BenQ. An option that stood out was the older version of the PD3225u, PD3220u. The specs and aesthetics were impressive, but preconceptions about colors and scaling kept me from purchasing. At 1300 euros, the price also didn't help, so I opted for a studio display instead, which I covered elsewhere. After moving that to a second space, I needed an external display again, and this time I got the BenQ PD3225u, which I've been using for several months now and believe is a great alternative in 2026. But before telling you why, here are several details. 1. This review comes from a long-time Apple user who loves the studio display but makes a better use of it in another space. More on that is in a Substack article. 2. BenQ didn't sponsor me. I bought the monitor with my own money and I have zero regrets. And last but not least, for those wondering, no, there are no scaling or color issues, although it's a 32-inch 4K panel, at least with my unit. Do I recommend it to Apple users and creatives? Absolutely. So let's begin. The studio display is flawless. Hands down, it's an experience in and of itself. The best sound I've heard on a display, an all-metal chassis to become an instant classic like older iMacs and cinema screens, and out-of-the-box plug-and-play uniformity and scaling. Can't argue with that. On the contrary, it can be too much of a good thing, at least in my humble opinion, and more precisely, it can be too bright. Working in different fields, producing, writing, authorship, videography, design, and digital products, my eyes are very tired. Blue-light blocking goggles are a must, and I always appreciate darker UIs like FL Studio or Ableton. Although the 600 nits of the studio display are considered on the lower end, I keep the slider to a minimum, which is plenty bright in my dark room. Yet, no matter what, it goes up a notch as if it knows best. My second qualm with the studio display is surprisingly about the hardware. Despite its tank-like construction, the surface glass has no protection. It is basically exposed and vulnerable when connecting your MacBook Pro, the device you're likely using. No, it won't be severely damaged if you hit the edge, but it may get a somewhat noticeable fracture. While the whole story is in the mentioned article, the reason for not choosing another studio display is that many things changed besides its price after 4 years. I reignited my passion for turntablism and producing and got a pair of Genelec speakers to go with my Apollo. This is probably the most crucial. I redecorated my main lab, opting for a more unifying grey, and realized that I actually prefer an anti-reflection coating. And though 27 inches is plenty, I need a bit more real estate. I looked at the 5K Asus and BenQ's MA series, and soon I recalled the monitor I initially considered. Before Black Friday 2025, Amazon Germany dropped a one-time offer for almost half the price, so I pulled the trigger and also got a screen bar Halo 2, but that's another video. The display arrived in 2 weeks. There was no rush to unbox as I was still painting the room, and after finishing, I filmed a short unboxing my new gadgets, and boy, did they exceed my expectations. Though not fully metal, the PD3225u has a robust construction with a massive stand. All cables can be disconnected, unlike some other monitors. The industrial premium feel suggests it is made for heavy creative work. The colors are black and kind of a space grey, matching my new vibe, which also applies to the screen bar Halo 2. Now, again, is a 4K 32-inch panel good enough for Macs? Well, based on my experience with this particular model and unit, totally. But you can also check Kyle Erickson, who has a great video on that. Initially, there was a bit of a difference, but after installing DisplayPilot 2, it became unnoticeable. DisplayPilot 2 lets you command different settings from your keyboard, so the integration feels seamless. The PD3225u comes with a controller or a hotkey puck, which though pretty neat, I do not find myself using outside of adjusting brightness and sound. Maybe that will change in the future. Now, I'm not going to lie, the colors are not 100% identical. I'm not a colorist, but Apple's original colors have slightly more contrast, deeper blacks and mid-tone saturation. Is the difference an issue? Not at all. Using BenQ's MBook mode, I'm more than satisfied to do all my work. A primary reason I considered BenQ is eye care. Opinions can vary, but mine is that this definitely isn't some gimmicky advertisement. My eyes experience far less strain, especially with the screen bar bouncing off the wall. I'm a writer first, having my best focus in close to pitch black darkness. For the first time in my life, I can write whole scripts in Grammarly without my blue-white goggles. Sessions are calming and the text is plenty sharp. Although as far as I know, you can actually install third-party software to make it even sharper. Keeping my head at a healthy distance, the bigger panel, the anti-glare and the thin bezels are all tiny details that kinda make a huge difference. The solid build and utilitarian aesthetic remind me of my journey's current stage, while the height adjustment is something I seldom use but appreciate plenty. Realistically, the PD3225u is a phenomenal display for Mac creatives, not a phenomenal display with phenomenal speakers. Are the speakers good enough for streaming something that keeps you in flow states? Sure. Are they anywhere near the studio display? Hell no. Truth be told, I can get crispy mixes with the studio display, which puts it in its own category. Conversely, can the studio display replace proper sound like a pair of Genelec speakers or Adams? No. Is the BenQ a quote-unquote studio display killer? Hell no. The studio display is the piece to get when all you need is a single display, which is the case with my second WAP. I plan to use that space for finishing books and courses, writing philosophy, and perhaps some graphics. Adding the screen bar for half the price makes the BenQ, although different, a remarkable experience too. So think of it like this. It's not about finding the best monitor, but about defining the most optimal one based on context. The ultimate tools are those that remove the most friction. For the deepest work, the greatest luxury is your health and the stability of your systems and routines. For many, the PD3225u can be a piece providing both. Thanks for watching and peace.